So let's talk about something that's a little bit of an art and a little bit of a science: data storytelling. We're going to dive in and figure out how we can turn all those raw, boring numbers into stories that, well, actually make you feel something. You hear these words and you immediately lean in, right? Once upon a time. It's like a switch flips in our brain, and there's a reason for that. Stories are literally how we're wired to communicate. It's been that way forever, a way for us to share what we've learned and, just connect with each other. But that's the real challenge today, isn't it? I mean, we are drowning in data. Spreadsheets, dashboards, stats flying at us from everywhere. So how in the world do you cut through all that noise and actually find the meaning that's hiding in plain sight?
To get to the bottom of that, we actually have to go back in time a bit. Let's take a look at the timeless power of a good story and see how it's evolved from ancient campfires all the way to modern code. I mean, just look at this journey. We started by drawing on cave walls, right? Then came folklore passed down through generations, the printing press, movies, and now, here we are in the digital age. The tools have changed like crazy, but the main thing hasn't. We are still a species that runs on stories.
Okay, but this is where we hit a bit of a snag in the modern world. We've got more data than any humans in history, but just having the numbers doesn't mean we have clarity. In fact, sometimes it just creates more confusion. Okay, take a look at this. It's a table. The numbers are accurate, the info is all there, but let's be honest, it's a wall of text. You have to really work to figure out what's going on. This right here, this is the villain of our story today. Data without a story. Can you tell me the main point in like 2 seconds? It's hard. If you stare at it long enough, sure, you'll probably figure it out. But it doesn't jump out at you. It doesn't tell you why you should care. And that's the exact problem we're trying to solve. And boom, here's the hero. This is the exact same data we were just looking at, but now it's a story. You get it instantly. One line goes this way, the other goes that way. Even the title gives a ray of hope, tells you how to feel about it. The insight is immediate, it's emotional, and it is crystal clear. So that's what this is all about. Data storytelling is that magical bridge that takes you from that confusing, dense table to that super clear, insightful chart. It's all about shaping raw information into something that people can actually connect with, without needing a PhD in statistics. All right, so every great story has its essential parts, right? And a data story is no different. So let's pop the hood and look at the 3 key elements, the DNA, if you will, of a great data story. First things first, it all starts with the data. This is your foundation, your ground zero. It has to be solid, it has to be accurate, because without good data, you don't have a story, you have fiction. And that's a totally different thing. Next up, you need a narrative. This is the plot. This is the glue that holds all the numbers together. It guides your audience from point A to point B to point C. The narrative is what answers the big, important question, so what? And finally, the visuals. Think of this as setting the scene. It's the stage, the lighting, the special effects. The right chart makes the data come alive. It lets your audience literally see the story you're telling, making all those complicated patterns feel simple. So, here's where the real magic happens. Right in the middle, where these 3 circles overlap. You can have data that just explains something, or a story that's kind of engaging. But when you blend all 3, the solid data, the compelling narrative, and the clear visuals, that's when you get something that can actually change minds and drive action. Okay, so we know the ingredients: data, narrative, visuals. Got it. But how do you actually bake the cake? Let's walk through a really simple but super powerful formula for building your own data story. And this is the most important thing to remember. A really good data story isn't just a list of facts or a bunch of charts you threw on some slides. It's a journey. It's intentionally designed to have a beginning, a middle, and an end that takes your audience somewhere new. And this right here, this is your map for that journey. It's called the data storytelling arc. And what's cool is, it's basically adapted from the same dramatic structure that playwrights and authors have used for centuries to keep people hooked. It just works. So let's break it down real quick. You start by setting the scene and hooking your audience with a problem or a question. Then you build the tension with your rising insights, little clues in the data that lead somewhere. Then, bam, the aha moment. That's your climax, the big reveal. And you finish with a solution and a clear call to action. See, it's a story. So you might be thinking, okay, that's cool, but why go through all this trouble? Why not just email the spreadsheet and call it a day? Well, because the goal here isn't just to share data, it's to make an impact. And this is exactly why it works so well. When you wrap your data in a story, it becomes way more memorable because, like we said, our brains are hardwired for narrative. It's more engaging. And because of all that, it is way, way more persuasive.
So, the real goal is so much bigger than just dumping information on people. It's about taking something complex and making it simple. It's about creating a connection that makes people actually care. And ultimately, it's about motivating them to get up and do something, to drive real change.
I love this quote from Jean-Luc Godard. Sometimes reality is too complex. Stories give it form. I think that just nails it. The world is messy. Data is chaotic. Stories are what we use to create order and meaning out of all of it. And that's really the bottom line today. A piece of data can prove a fact. It can show you that something is true. But a great story can make people care that it's true. It can turn a simple observation into a full-blown movement. So the only real question left is, what story are you going to tell?